I'd like to call the Clarkston Independence District Library Board of Trustee meeting for May 12th to order at 6:05. We'll rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Julie, the roll, please.
Dan Gaffney. Here. Michelle Ginn. Here. Dan Green absent. Mary Himberg.
Here.
Allison McFadden-Kiesling.
Here.
Marilyn Pomeroy.
Here.
Kay Robertson.
Here.
Julie Meredith here.
Okay. I'll move for approval of the agenda. I'll accept a motion for approval of the agenda.
I so move to approve the agenda as presented.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda. Any commentary, questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. Motion is carried. Call to the public. We have no public tonight. Due to the weather. So that is closed. The consent agenda only has 2 items on it tonight. I'll accept a motion to approve the consent
I'll
agenda.
move.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda. Any question about either other item? Please, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion is carried. Library Director's Report.
Under general information, the library is in the open press 3 times since the beginning of May. On May 2nd, there was an article about Henry Willison's estate planning program that took place in the library's meeting room. On May 8th, there was an article about the library's upcoming millage vote. And on May 9th, there was an article about our program taking place tomorrow evening featuring D.E. Johnson, the author of Detroit Shuffle. So we've been getting a lot of press coverage lately. Under staffing, I'm pleased to announce that our head of Children's and Teen Services, Tracy Bedford, has selected Shayla Padilla as our new part-time programming assistant. Shayla started last Monday and is already hard at work prepping a number of science-based activities to fit with our Fizz Boom Pop Read summer reading program theme, which I think is going to be great fun.
Oh.
Something fun over there.
Sound effects.
She bless you.
It's never happened before.
No, but it was aptly timed.
Yeah.
Okay, collaborations and projects. On Saturday, the Children's Department participated in the Independence Township Parks and Recreation Kids Day in the Park. Although it was a little too windy, Tracy said the kids had a lot of fun. We passed out lots of information about the library's summer reading program and anticipate a good turnout for our events based on the reaction to our offerings. The Children's Department is also excited to go to the schools to promote our summer reading program in the next few weeks. In addition, the library has been hosting additional visits by preschool classes at the library for story time. So we've just been a buzz with kids coming and going.
Good.
So it's been really great. The Friends of the Library sponsored a document shredding day on Saturday. It went well, and people that participated were thrilled that we did it. So this was secure document shredding, and then the proceeds from that event went back to the Friends of the Library. We're considering various options for making it an annual event. For anyone who missed it, the Independence Township Senior Center will be hosting a shred day on Saturday, May 17th. You can reach the Senior Center at 248-625-8231 for more information. Also, mark your calendar for the 2nd annual Friends of the Library Chocolate Celebration on Tuesday, May 20th from 7 to 8:30 p.m. Sample bite-sized morsels of the culinary creations of local cooks and vote for your favorite. Prizes will be awarded for the delicacies with the most votes. If you'd like to enter your chocolate creation, the deadline to submit a form to enter the contest is Thursday, March 15th. The forms are available in the library or on the library's website at www.indelib.org.
Julie, is that correct that there's a period after the E?
Yeah. Indie.live.
No.
Oh,
Or
no,
Indie
you are
Live.
so correct. Yep, sorry about that. INDELIB.org. An extra dot there. Sorry about that. Sort of getting a little crazy with the dots.
I also saw a mention of the open press with a picture article on my Facebook that came from my daughter-in-law, that came from a young mom, friend of hers.
Oh, wow, very good.
Excellent. All right. Regular business. Number 1, the review of the pet adoption program.
In your packet, Lawrence Marble, our Head of Adult Services, is requesting permission to host a pet adoption day sponsored by the Semper Fidelis Pet Rescue of Clarkston at the library on Saturday, October 11th, 2014, from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Weather permitting, this event would take place outside, but would be moved to the meeting room if the weather is bad. And he asked me to table it from the last meeting because he wanted a chance to do a little bit more thorough proposal in terms of some of the details that he knew you would ask about. So he sent a little memo. I would like to propose the pet adoption program at the library in October. Many libraries have held these events and have great turnout from the community, as well as helping a needy cause. Amanda Falls is the event coordinator at Semper Fidelis Pet Rescue based in Clarkston and would oversee the event. The adoption show would be held on Saturday, October 11th from 12 to 4. Apparently he's changed that time with her. If weather is nice, we can have the event outside, but I would need to book the meeting room as a backup. They do have liability insurance, and during the show, the dogs and cats will be in crates unless they are being taken out to meet somebody or to go outside to relieve themselves. In most cases, people will need to fill out adoption applications to be approved. This can take a few days, so chances are there will be no monetary transactions on that day. If, however, someone is approved that day, the library will not be involved in handling any transactions. We would treat it similar to how we treat authors who sell copies of their books.
Okay.
So he just wanted to, this is something we've never really done before, and because these are animals coming in from an outside source, I wanted him to double check, and so that's why he called out the liability insurance and all of those details.
I think that covers everything that we would need to be concerned about.
Yeah, I don't see why we can't try it.
It seems like a good opportunity to me. I think we were trying to do some things that are sort of outside the box.
Okay.
I would move that we approve as offered.
A second.
Okay.
You know, I don't know if this is the time, but I think his programs have been wonderful. We've come to several of them, and every one of them have been just
He's been doing a really amazing job.
Yeah.
So we're very pleased
his
with
work.
that.
very good.
And it's nice to be trying out different kinds of things.
I think so too.
And he comes into my office and he says, "Have we ever done this before?" And I said, "No." "Can I try it?" I said, "Sure." This one I thought maybe we should come to the board because there was, the possibility of liability, and I thought you should be aware of that. But most of the time, he's been trying new and interesting things, and we've been getting really good feedback from this community.
Which is excellent.
So, yeah.
Great.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the pet adoption program in the library as presented. Any other comments or questions? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Now, let's review the first quarter financial statement.
Sharon Duckworth has provided the first quarter financials, and I have gone through them, and she has given a memo to me about the things that she was concerned about. I'm just going to go over, I didn't see anything other than what she pointed out, but I thought I would respond to the things that she brought up. Her first concern had to do with line 716, which is health insurance, and she's looking at it in terms of the even expenditure of funds, and she's saying we're a little bit ahead in that line item, and she was concerned. And my response to that one is we did have an employee who, after the board had already approved the budget, unexpectedly put her family on as a family plan, and it had been budgeted as a single. And then she has since then gone to part-time, so her family has been taken off. And now we have a new employee on there who is also going on as a single. So we are going to be, probably near the end of the year, a little bit over budget, but we're talking a pretty small amount. The first quarter would indicate it was a much higher amount than that, but since then that person has switched off, so we're not expending it quite that rate. But there is probably going to need to be a small budget adjustment by the end of the year. So.
But it's good that she's checking these things out.
Yeah.
That's what we want.
But I didn't want the board to be concerned because it looks like it's this big deal, and I think it's slowed back down, and by the end of the year, we'll probably be able to make some small changes and straighten it out. Item number 2, it's kind of an interesting thing. We actually have more money in the events line item, in one of the events line items than what we started out with, and it's because the library paid for something up front that the Friends were sponsoring, and the Friends reimbursed the library, but they reimbursed the library after the year had turned over.
Oh.
So it should have been for last year instead of this year, and so she's going to do some adjusting. She's going to bill it back to last year so that it will come out evenly, but it'll straighten itself out. She and Debbie are working on that one.
Something an accountant would notice.
Yeah. Well, but it is.
But you know all those
more money than we started with. Yeah, that never happens.
But that's like those doctor's appointments you have in 2013 and you don't see the
Yes.
bill until
Exactly,
2014.
yeah.
And yes.
So there was just a glitchy thing. It was one of those programs that was at the end of the year that we paid for up front, and then the Friends reimbursed us, but the reimbursement came later, and so she'll straighten it out so it won't look so strange. This one I actually had to make notes on. So line item 910, which is insurance. It's the insurance on the building. That's the Michigan Municipal Risk Management. She was extremely concerned because the amount that we've paid so far looks like it's way ahead, and she said if we're expending at this rate, we're going to run out of money. But what she doesn't know about this particular company is we actually only get 3 bills a year. In February, we get the first bill, and it's 50% of the total amount for liability
I
insurance.
remember this discussion.
Then in April, we get a second bill for 25% of the total amount. And then in July, we get a third bill for 25% of the total amount. So we will have completely expended that line by July.
Okay. We talked about this in our budget
We did.
workshop in the fall, as I recall.
And it just freaks everybody out because everybody's thinking we're going to run out of money. And really what is happening is they want us to be totally paid off in our liability insurance way before the end of the year. So that one I did, like I said, I had to make sticky notes to get the exact dates. But it's the charges come in February, April, and July. And
Okay.
so I have reassured her and responded to her so she knows not to worry about it. But if that comes up again, that's the strange one. In terms of 923, which is heat, she was concerned. She mentioned that it seemed very high, but of course that has to do with the winter, and then it'll be summer. We won't be spending as much, so she wasn't real worried about that, but she did point it out. And then item number 5 is account 931, which is building and grounds maintenance. She's very concerned about that because if you look at where we should be for the first quarter and where we are, we would be about $3,870 above budget. And most of it, she says, is probably due to snow removal. She did notice an invoice from Springer Mechanical for $1,289. That was an emergency repair on one of the HVAC units on the roof. We blew up, I'm not sure if it was a fan or a motor, I can't remember specifically, but it was an emergency repair. It was not a budgeted repair. There is a possibility that in this line item we will get to the end of the year and we may need to do some budget adjustments. We may go over budget. It's just so hard to tell this early on. Obviously, we had no idea that snow plowing was going to cost what it cost this year.
Nobody did.
And nobody knew that was going to happen. We would have all moved to Arizona had we known that. Everybody would have evacuated Michigan. And then we also, because of the freeze-thaw cycle, really struggled with trying to maintain the parking lot. It's still obviously not in a good condition, but we really had gotten to the point where a cold patch wasn't even a possibility because it would literally freeze overnight and pop it the very next day. I mean, so our snowplow guy actually had recommended a combination of sand and pea gravel just to get us through that freeze-thaw cycle, and that actually worked really well. Then once it kind of cleared up and the weather broke a little bit, he came in and he cold patched it.
And that has worked pretty well
It's
on the
worked out
entrance.
We're going to need to do some additional repairs this spring. Obviously, the repair of the parking lot, which has come up on a number of occasions. Before the library was separated from the township did bring in engineers to look at it. They estimated a total replacement of the parking lot was what was in order, and they're estimating between $150,000 and $300,000 to do that. But we don't have it. We just simply don't have it. So the only thing that I can suggest in the spring is that we may need to dip into fund balance a little bit and do some spot repairs in the worst possible potholes, because this is cold patch. It will not hold
No,
us
Yeah, it won't last.
till next year. And even the point at which the millage passes, that money will not be in our coffers until after the first of the year, because that'll be collected on taxes in December. So even,
Yeah, and you can't do hot
After-
asphalt repairs
yeah,
after like mid-November.
so even after the August election, that money will not start being collected in December. We probably won't see it until, say, February, March timeframe. So we're looking at next spring before anything real can be done. I need the public to really understand we're doing the best we can, but the money just simply is not there. So,
Did we ever hear about how much it would cost to brush the gravel or the debris from the winter?
well, that's attached to the lawn mowing quote, which is later in the
Oh, okay.
agenda. We can
All
talk a
right.
little bit more about that at that time. But essentially, what we can do in terms of that is we can hire the Independence Township
Oh,
DPW.
was that for the 18?
Yep,
Yeah.
yep. So we can talk a little bit more about that. Does anybody have any questions about the first quarter?
No, that's very clear. Really
Yeah,
appreciate the detail.
She was really, I was really pleased. I think we're spot on, and in terms of the way that Sharon has set this up, this is the first year that we're actually seeing the way this is going to work. I mean, last year we had to do some corrections and we had some data that was missing because the township didn't turn it over and that sort of thing. So this is the first year we're seeing the way this is going to work. We're going to see these quarterly reports. The librarians will be seeing these quarterly reports so that they can keep track of where they are in terms of their budgets and how they're spending. So far, so good. So I think it's going well.
Okay, item number 3. We're going to question about granting permission for the Independence Township Parks, Rec, and Seniors to use the library parking lot on July 4th.
So Independence Township Parks, Recreation, and Seniors has requested permission to use the library's parking lot for additional parking on July 4th. They did send me a letter about this. This is something we did last year as well. Since the township and the library are now separate, I called the representative of the company that insures the library and grounds to inquire if there were any issues or reasons to be concerned. It is still the same company also insuring the township, so the agent felt that no additional coverage would be needed because basically no matter what happens, that company is going to be covering either way, whether it's the township or the library. And like I said, this is something that we've done annually, but because we are now a separate entity from the township, the process would be to have them send us a letter each year and have the library board approve it. So.
Okay,
I move that we grant permission for the Township, Parks and Rec, and Seniors to use the library parking lot on July 4th.
A second.
okay, it's been moved and seconded that we allow them to use the parking lot for the July 4th festivities. Any other comment or question? Not all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Okay, number 4, lawn mowing. Thank goodness we've gotten that far. Not snow removal.
Okay. Independence Township DPW has been responsible for mowing the library's lawn for many years. DPW Director Linda Richardson has presented a quote for lawn care service for the library for the 2014 season. This quote is an hourly rate of the workers, which is $11.50 per hour, plus a small additional fee of $6.50 per hour to cover gas and equipment maintenance. The DPW would put the library on their regular weekly mowing schedule and additional one-time lawn work such as sidewalk edging prior to the garden walk or bringing over the street sweepers to clean up the library's parking lot. Could be done upon request and would be billed at the same rate of $18 per hour per worker. This is a little higher than last year. Quite honestly, they were only charging us the hourly rate of the workers originally, and then Linda and I had a conversation. I said, Linda, you have got to charge for gasoline and really on the maintenance on the equipment. And so she started doing that last year, and this year, this is probably more accurate to what it really costs. I think they gave us a really
Good deal.
last year. My recommendation is that we go ahead and do this for this year, and that we go ahead and formally bid it out next year, just to make sure that we're getting the best deal possible. But since they've given us a good deal the last few years.
It doesn't look way out of line even at this, I don't think. I think that's still pretty
I
reasonable.
think it's still going to be a bit of a low ball in comparison to bidding it out to other
Yeah,
contractors.
Right, because that's a pretty sizable area.
There is a lot of
It's a huge lawn. It really is.
Yeah.
It really is a huge lawn. And there's a lot of edging. Now, they did edge the sidewalk, and I do actually request that they don't edge the sidewalk every week in order to save us a little money. They mow every week, and then we have them edge a few times a year. We usually have them edge before the garden walk, and then usually we do it, if we've got any other big events coming up, we'll do that. But just out of cost effectiveness,
It's
we
usually
don't.
not necessary to edge
Yeah.
for every.
But they did edge first thing this year, and like I said, I'll have them touch it up right before the garden walk, because that's an event when we want the library to look its best, so.
Okay,
Okay.
all right, is there a motion?
I would move that we approve the lawn mowing contract submitted by the township as presented.
I'll second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the mowing contract. Any other comment? If not, those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you, and thank Linda for giving us a quote and
Yeah.
putting us on the schedule. That will be good.
And I will get with her about cleaning it. Now that we have formally accepted their quote, I'll call her about having the carpet cleaned up. So everything has to go in order.
Right.
Okay, so a review of the meeting room policy. This is one of the policies that when we were doing our policies, we sort of skipped over this one. Part of the reason is because Debbie's in charge of our meeting room scheduling, and she wasn't here. She was out on leave at the time, and I did not want to go over this policy without her being here and come back and have her say, "What on earth did you do?"
Well, this was part of the blanket approval of all policies.
So it's not that we didn't have a policy, but we actually, Debbie and I hadn't gone through and really read it carefully, and we did make some.
Reviewed it. Okay.
So we made some adjustments. Primarily, it's the same. We've tightened up the wording a little bit. It basically says the same things. The only change that we did make, for a while, we were not renting out the youth activities room. We were only renting this room. This room rents out for $30 per hour with a minimum 2-hour rental, and then non-residents are charged a rate of $35 per hour with a minimum 2-hour rental. We do get requests a lot for rooms that are smaller than this. Our youth activities room has, part of the reason we hadn't been renting it out is that we use it a fair amount, but also that we have used it in the past for quite a lot of storage, and so the room is maybe not as big as it should be. But I give Keegan and Tracy a lot of credit. A few months ago, they went through and they went through everything that was in there and rearranged some things and put some other things into different storage spaces and whatever, and we feel like the room, and then we put locks on all the cabinets, because if we leave that room open to the public, there's a lot of craft supplies, there's glitter, we don't want kids getting into the glitter. The custodian would appreciate it if we lock up the glitter when we're not using it. So we did have locks installed on all the cabinets, so we feel now it's prepared for renting it out. And we would set the room rental fee at $20 per hour, and no minimum on that one, because a lot of times people who are coming in for those kinds of meetings, it's not uncommon, for example, for an attorney to come in and want to rent the room to do an affidavit or something like that. And so for that purpose, they're not going to, we use a 2-hour minimum, because what often happens is groups say, well, they only want to rent it for an hour, but they need to set it up first. So they say they're going to rent it for an hour, but then they actually come in a half an hour early to do setup, and then they stay half an hour late to break it back down. And so we started saying 2-hour minimum, because they really were using it for almost 2 full hours. Yeah. For this room, because the setup of a room this size is quite lengthy. That room is quite small. There are only 4 tables in that room and a small stack of chairs. You can set it up in 5 minutes. I can set it up in 5 minutes. I see people do it all the time. So we feel that would be a more reasonable rate. So that's the main thing that we changed about it, was adding that as a possibility. One other small change that we made, the previous policy did say that we don't allow food in the room, but the reality is that various groups do from time to time
Have coffee,
ask for
cookies.
request being able to have food in the room, and what we determined was we need to find out what it is they intend to do in terms of making sure that we know what they're signing up for, so we know the cleanup afterwards and what the potentials are. If they're going to be serving cookies, that's
One thing.
That's not a problem. If they're serving, full meals and we're going to find little bits of lettuce and all kinds of stuff all over the room, and we have another group scheduled in right after, that's a problem. So basically what we said is that it would be based on approval by the director and/or the library.
And that's a
board.
good way to handle it.
Mhm.
Yes, I think it's clear.
Mhm.
I will move to approve the meeting room policy as presented.
I'd second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the meeting room policy as presented. Any other comment or question?
No, I think it looks good.
Thank you.
That's our comment. Looks good. All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The motion is carried. All right, let's talk about our upcoming millage.
Okay. So I gave you an update last month, and I have another update this month. The ballot language documentation has been submitted to Oakland County with copies going to the clerks of the township and the city. I have received confirmation from Oakland County Elections Office that our proposal is on the ballot August 5th, 2014. That whole process has been complete, so we are on there, and it is listed on their website. So via email, I had let you know that we had received that, but it is fully confirmed. Just in terms of presentations, I am presenting to the Senior Center Advisory Committee this week. I am presenting to the Independence Conservatives Club this summer in July. I am finalizing arrangements to speak to the Clarkson Community Schools School Board. Their agenda's been pretty full lately. They are really interested in having me come in and speak to them, though. Same thing, it would be an information-only presentation, but it's just a matter of having them fit it into their schedule. There had been a possibility that I would speak to them tonight, but I'm here, so I haven't quite figured out how to be two places at the same time. So we're still working on that, and Dr. Rock has been very receptive, and Joan Patterson has been helping me in terms of sort of navigating their agenda and the steps that need to be taken, and so I'm appreciative to both of them for helping me with that. The Friends of the Library have produced 2 information-only pieces for us. They are at your spaces.
Yes.
The first is a bookmark, and the second is a trifold brochure. The difference between the two, the trifold brochure just has a few extra pieces of information. The bookmark does not touch on the CIA and some of those details. The bookmark, or the trifold brochure, talks about how we compare to other libraries. And it also talks about the Corridor Improvement Authority, has a little bit more information about library's annual usage, a little bit more extensive list on how the millage funds will be spent. But basically, they are extremely similar in content. And then in terms of where we are for educating the public, Dan Green has been assisting me in the wording of all of these pieces, since he has a background in PR. And then Bill Bowman, who is our IT coordinator, has been helping me with the website. We will be working on a 3-minute video, which the Friends are paying for. But I did want to show you the website so that you can see where we are. And you can give me some feedback about some additional things that you might like to see there. So this is the main homepage. If you go under Library Info, you'll see Millage 2014. You just click on that. And this is our basic information-only website. So the first thing I wanted to let everybody know is that I've been working with Barb Pilata, the township clerk, because we have precinct changes this time around. 45 days prior to the election, usually what we do, because we are a polling location, we are hosting precinct 4 this time around. We used to host it precinct 12. Prior to that, we were hosting precinct 10. We are now hosting precinct 4. And I assume we will remain hosts of precinct 4. But in terms of the precinct map, 45 days before the election, we post the precinct map in the lobby with a big note that says, "Do you know where you vote?" And then we also will post the sample ballots for both the city and the township there so that people can see it. And those are available about 45 days before the election. On our website, we have put the precinct maps up. So the full precinct map, if you click on that, it will take you to quite a large file. If we can get it to load. Perhaps not, we'll see. Nope, it doesn't want to. So this is the full precinct map. This is actually sort of a poster size, but because it's put on there as a PDF, you can print it any size you want. So you could make it 8.5 by 11 or 11 by 17. If you make it 8.5 by 11, it might be a little hard to read, but you can blow it up and look at it whatever size so that you can see what the precincts look like. The clerk has informed me that all Independence Township residents will be receiving new voter registration cards, even if your precinct has not changed. Everybody is getting a new card. To call attention to the fact that she wants everybody looking at their precinct to make sure that they fully understand where it is that they're going to vote.
Julie, can I ask a question? When someone moves to Independence Township or Clarkston, what is the deadline for them to register before the election?
I'm so glad you asked. For Independence Township election information, we also put a link on our website there so that people can look and see what that is. And it is, I have to find it.
Voter forms?
There's voter forms.
Voter
I actually have the
eligible.
deadlines at the top of the page.
At the very top, yes,
There's the
on
election.
the right,
Registration deadline at the
Oh,
top.
July 7th.
July 7th.
Okay, there it is.
Maybe the information could go on or around that big poster of the precincts?
Good idea. You know, I'm going to grab my
Make a note.
notes here.
That is a good
Should have brought my
idea.
notes with me. Sorry about that.
Because there is a lot of action in the real estate world.
There is. There
That's a
really
good point.
is.
Yeah.
It is.
Well, my
So-
kids are involved.
And so are they registering at Township Hall?
Well, for the township residents, they will register at Town Hall. I believe you can also register at the Secretary of State's
Yes.
office.
Yes, usually that's one of the things that when you change your address on your driver's
They do.
license,
Driver's
they'll ask
license.
you.
In fact, my sister-in-law changed hers from Arizona just last week,
Okay.
and they registered her to
Yeah,
vote.
They will
Pontiac.
generally ask if you want to
Good.
do that all at the same time.
Yes.
It's kind of helpful.
Great.
Okay, something that we want to add the voter registration deadline to our display. And we actually, libraries all over the state of Michigan are collaborating with the Secretary of State's office, and they have been feeding us information and sending us really nice posters that we can put up in the library to help people be reminded of upcoming elections and various deadlines, and those are the kinds of things they've been sending us.
Excellent.
So they probably will send us a nice poster that all I have to do is print it, which would be
Okay.
fabulous. Yes. Okay. So anyway, we do have the election information for the township and for the city of Clarkston. The city of Clarkston, because it is such a small entity, when I called and talked to the city manager, she said, just have them call us. We like to answer questions personally. So we did put the phone numbers of both of those offices, both the township and the city, so that you can have your questions answered if it has anything to do with actually voter information.
Well, there might be a little confusion. Someone who I thought would know said, so if the millage passes, what we pay to the township now will go away. And he said, that's a really good. I said, well, yes. And so I don't,
So that's part of what I wanted to talk about tonight. So what we're doing as we develop this webpage is we're trying to figure out what those frequently asked questions are and put the information up on the website with an information-only answer as we are allowed to do. So that is one of the first questions is, what happens to the current library funding? In the township, it is a millage, and that millage is expiring, so it's going away. In the city, they're paying out of the general fund. And so what we did was we went to the city and said, what are your intentions when the millage passes? And they previously in 2012 had passed a resolution saying they would roll down the general fund millage, the equivalent of the current library millage, so that the city residents would be making the same determination in terms of millage that the township residents are making. The judgment is the same, that it's going to be an average of $125 per year, which equates to a $56 increase, which equates to less than $5 per month. They're being asked that same question. So what we will be doing to this website is adding that as a question with that answer, and then also a link to that past resolution, so that people can see exactly what it says, and they know for certain that the city has voted on that and has agreed to that. So that's the frequently asked questions number one that we need to add. What about funding? And we want to add that resolution. And the explanation for the township residents that this is a replacement millage because the other millage is expiring. Okay, so the first thing on the website we do have is the ballot language. And you click on that and it basically just brings up a PDF of exactly the wording that we've seen already.
Which is shorter.
Which is shorter. Yes, which is shorter. But
And we hope clearer.
And we
so
hope
clear,
clearer.
exactly. The library millage fast facts handout, that's the little bookmark. Do you have in your hand? Wow, bigger than life.
Real big.
Really, really big. So it is the fast facts information from that handout. The library millage informational brochure, that's the trifold that you have in your hands right now. And just to go over that a little bit. What is the millage on the ballot? We're asking for 1.25 mils. It is replacement, and it will replace all current library funding in the township and the city. How do we compare to neighboring libraries? I know we've talked about this a number of times. The Springfield Township Library, their spending per resident is $44.58. Brandon Township Library is at $60.91. Orion Township Library is at $68.74. Our library is at $29.20. After the millage passes, that would get us up to $50.44. So not at the very, very top, not at the very, very bottom, but at least in the same ballpark as these neighboring libraries. How much is it going to cost? So for the average homeowner with a property having a market value of $200,000, they'll be paying $125 per year. This represents an increase of only $56 or less than $5 per month. What about the Satchville Road Corridor Improvement Authority? Okay, the first thing that everybody needs to understand about that is the Corridor Improvement Authority only affects 5.4% of the total properties in Independence Township. So first and foremost, the likelihood is that you're affected by it is very low. It's only those properties that are along Satchville Road that go from Clarkson Road to Mabee Road. Most of those properties are industrial or commercial. Of those properties that are residential, most of them are not having anything captured unless they have built on the property since 2006. So even of those residential properties, most of them are not having money captured. But the most important thing that people need to understand is this will account for less than $6,000 out of the library's budget in the first year. This is when I say it's small, 0.3%, not 3%, 0.3%. It's a very, very small amount of money. And it is most likely not being taken out of those taxes that you're paying for library service. Okay, so how will the village funds be spent? This is a little bit longer than the short list on the bookmark. Our top four: restore the library's hours, replace the outdated public computers, expand programming for all ages to promote lifelong learning, and restore and expand funding for library materials, both physical and electronic. But then I've added some additional things on here that we're really excited to do. Expand collaborations with the schools, promote resources to help local businesses succeed, and of course, what's very important is to develop a capital improvement plan for a 22-year-old library building. And then of course, what will the community gain? A place for children to discover the joys of learning, continued lifelong learning for adults beyond formal education, access to library materials from across the state, and cultural enrichment for all ages. Now, some of the other details that people may not get out of this flyer but are important to know is that, of course, we have to talk what happens if the millage does not pass. If the millage does not pass, the library, because of the district library agreement, needs to secure 1.25 mils by August 10th. If we do not secure that funding, the library will be forced to close. That was in the newspaper, and it's important for people to understand. This is not a threat, it is simply a legal fact. This is a reestablishment process, and the final step in that process is to fund the library. If it does not receive funding, we are put in a position to close. Normally, when a library reestablishes, if it does not successfully reestablish, you revert back to the law under which you were previously established. But our law was repealed. So we have nothing to go back to. And the state, quite frankly, is concerned because this has never happened before. We would be forced to close while the township and the state figure out what the options are. That means the attorneys will be involved. It's not going to be an immediate fix. It's going to take some time to figure it out. The other problem with that people don't understand is that if the library is not here, you lose your privileges with other libraries, because the whole concept of a library, reciprocal borrowing, is that we will share our library with you if you share your library with us. So a perfect example is, our patrons use this library, they also use Orion uses their library, they also use us. If we do not have a library to share, our patrons cannot go to the Orion library and check out materials, because Orion's going to say, well, wait a minute, you don't have anything to share with us. So that whole reciprocal borrowing agreement goes away. So it's more complicated than people just saying, well, if the library isn't here, I'm just going to use a different library. And I have talked to the director at the Orion Library, and I'll be talking to other neighboring library directors in order to make sure they understand the situation that we're in, so that they are not inadvertently assuring our patrons of something that is not accurate, which is that they would be, going to that library or use that other library. Yeah. So that's kind of where we are in terms of that. But getting back to sort of the important pieces that we want the public to know, that would be, how will these millage funds be spent? Obviously, we want to restore the library's hours. We want to put back into place our 21st century library. And the public computers and the restoration of hours and the expansion of programs and the library materials, those are all the important things that people have been asking for. Another thing that's important that people understand in terms of this whole library reestablishing process is that 1.25 mils, we came up with that after a whole process of figuring out what the community wanted. We did focus groups, we did surveys, we did research in terms of what the community's expectations were for a library. Then we sat down the District Library Agreement Committee, which was made up of people from both the township and the city, to determine how much it would cost to put that in place. That's where that 1.25 mils came from. It's an accurate anticipation of what it's going to cost to run the library that the community told us that they wanted. So that's where that number is from. Okay, so on the main part of the site, the first thing that we did was we put the fast facts to know, the basics. When is the millage? It's a replacement millage. 95% of the library's budget is represented by this millage. The rate, 1.25 mils. What it's going to cost the average homeowner, $125 per year with a house with a market value of $200,000. And it represents an increase of only $56 or less than $5 per month. And the library's millage has been at the original 0.75 mils or less since the library was established in 1965. Once again, how will the money be spent? But in terms of my questions to the library board, obviously you're out in the community as well. We know we need to add information about the Corridor Improvement Authority. And then we also need to add information about this funding. What about the current funding? What happens to the current funding? There are a lot of people that are concerned about that. But I would be interested from the board, are there any other questions that you're hearing from the community that you feel are important that we need to cover? Do you want to see on the website specifically the information about what happens if it closes? Do you want to see on the website the information about reciprocal borrowing?
I think that it's important to put the reciprocal borrowing.
I think so too, because
there are people who just don't understand it.
yes.
Okay.
And that's like a key issue, because you have people saying on the one hand, well, I don't want to pay more in taxes, but who think that nothing's going to go away, and something is going to go away.
And I think there was a longtime library user that said to me this week, I didn't realize it was so dire that we wouldn't be able to use another library. And so I think it's really important.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
important.
I mean, I've been saying that to anyone who asks, but I think that we need to make sure
I
that.
personally can't imagine a community where there's not a library that I can use.
We might put on something about the electronic services currently available,
Okay.
because there are still people who think that libraries are a question of libraries have books and then there's the internet, as opposed to the fact that the internet is another tool that librarians love, and that we've been downloading materials since 2004. So I think that somewhere there's a question about, well, what does the library offer for people who have computers and e-books?
So maybe what we want to do is put a link on here that leads people back to other parts of the website that show the services that we
Yes.
have, because those are on the website.
That would be fine.
Right, but I
Okay.
think we need to.
We want to circle them back around.
Yeah.
I think you're right.
to the current services that are offered.
Because there's so much more than, I mean, I love the books, but there's a lot more happening here than just books.
I think people are starting to grasp. I had a conversation with a patron the other day who said, well, I didn't know you had ebooks. I said, well, we've had ebooks since 2004, so this is not new technology to us. It just took a while for that technology that you use to enjoy ebooks to catch up with the way people were interacting with them. We've had them for a long time. The people that were using them when we first got them in 2004 were people that had specific visual needs, and for them to read a book on a laptop was acceptable because they were wanting to make the text bigger, much bigger. Whereas now people are looking for it more in terms of convenience and portability, a little bit different aspect. Actually, back in 2004 when we first started doing this, the real heavy usage was downloadable audiobooks. It was kind of the dawn of the iPod and the MP3 player, and people were loading them onto these devices so that they could take them on vacation, so that they could plug them in. At the time, you would run them through your car using an FM transmitter or something along those lines, but it gave them the opportunity to make their audiobooks far more portable than a big stack of CDs that had to be loaded into the disc player in the trunk of your car or whatever. But so this is, the technologies are always changing, and we are always paying attention to what they are and trying to get ahead of what it is that people are interested in, what it is they want. So I think that's an important piece for people to understand as well.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions that, okay, very good.
And as we think of things, or as people call in questions, we'll be continuing to add information to the site.
Absolutely,
Yes.
yep. And that's the nice thing about it being set up this way. The structure is there now. And so it's very, very easy for Bill and I to just kind of type up the answer to the question, plug it in, and it's up almost immediately. So.
I think the two handouts are great.
They're phenomenal.
Thank you very
Because the
much.
friends have come through for us again.
Yes,
Yeah.
they have. They really,
They deserve a big round of appreciation from
And
us.
wording-wise, I give a lot of credit to Dan Green. He sat down and was really instrumental in getting that wording just right. And then, of course, Lydia is our design
Guru.
queen, so she makes them look lovely and interesting and eye-catching. So
Excellent.
credit where credit is due.
All right. Well, that completes our agenda for tonight, so I will accept a move to adjourn.
So moved.
1 second.
It's been moved and seconded that we adjourn. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And we are adjourned at 6:52.